Hello.
Okay, so we're live, and just a reminder to people who have come in since the beginning, we are being live streamed. The hearing will be recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel. And the next person up is Victoria Hopgood. Is Victoria here? It's not coming. All right, that's right. Yeah.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. David Patton. David, you're most welcome. And the next 10 minutes is all yours.
Yeah. David knows his stuff.
He does.
Council, please.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to these issues. Excuse me. I'll focus on what's happened today on two items. Before I start, there's no criticism here on current people's measures signed off on some of the contract. But it's certainly how I'm interpreting things at the stage. But anyway, the two items. One is running used for short-term stay accommodation. Unfortunately, I'm totally the opposite to Lisa, who spoke earlier. And just in that basis, there was no reference to the paying terms. There's lots on how much it costs, but nothing on what the occupation rates were. So that aside, I object to the proposal to increase add these activities to the economic development rate. In fact, I think on the contrary, it will be a negative impact on the local economy by adding costs that will ultimately be passed on to the visitor, therefore potentially reducing the number of visitors wanting to stay. The second point on that should such a policy may well reduce the number of properties offering accommodation as owners take their properties out of the market. I think it has provided a tremendous boost to the local economy. I'm just wondering if this administration had considered the impact of less accommodation beds being available and what these will do to the greater local economy. For example, if Coach Martinborough and around the Vines, would these events be all the same level if there were not enough accommodation beds available? Don't know. But if you've got a belly for a wine, you may not be. Chances are the numbers would be down. Administering such a policy and policing will only add costs with absolute minimal benefit, if any, in my opinion. It was interesting to note that on the 10th of October, listed on the SWDC Facebook page, the statement 63% supported proposal, 37 were not supported. In my opinion, the statement should not have been made, as it presupposes that most support, that most are in favour of the support. I ask, has the decision already been made? How many people were in the sample? Appreciating that the computation was still in progress. I strongly recommend to this council that you do not adopt such a policy. Second one is the capital value versus land value. I also object to this proposed change. It did come up some years ago, and I was one of the people that opposed it then. On the grounds that it removes the incentive to improve the value of the properties, and it creates another opportunity for the council to increase the cost of rates. Does the council decide who can pay on a capital rates value? Does the capital value of your property give you the ability to pay higher rates? I don't think so. In my opinion, the capital rate value is more suited to high density populations. We have several apartments on a small part of the land. This is not the situation in South Wairarapa. The council needs to keep the rating system simple, and the existing system has worked well for many years, so there's no need to change just because this system is used in the cities. Council needs to focus on core business and cost control, and to give us the ratepayers confidence that the hard-earned dollars are getting spent absolute best value for money. The level of rate rises over the past couple of years is totally unacceptable, and I don't have confidence that the ratepayers are getting the best value for money. I strongly recommend this council that you do not adopt this proposal. Thank you.
Thanks very much, David. Well, we have still quite a lot of time, so we'll be able to take plenty of questions, and we'll start with Councillor Plummer.
Yeah, thanks, David. Look, I've read your submission there, and I just want to delve in a bit deeper about your thoughts about this Airbnb issue, because you made a couple of comments about that it would probably reduce bed numbers and so on. So, and yet we know that our commercial operators who pay a commercial rate as well as the levy to thing. Very rarely do you see a no vacancy sign. Very rarely. So I'm just wondering how you reconcile in your mind where somebody can provide and compete with a commercial activity. The playing field's not fair. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, I guess that can be interpreted in ways. We've been running a home safe for about 3 or 4 years. We looked at renting the house out, and we've got experience with renting houses out in the past. And the damage done to a house, typically when a tenant changes, you've got to refurb the house. So this way we're safeguarding our investment. The fact is that typically it's only used on the weekend, so it's 2 days a week. There's good control over the feedback and the vetting of the quality of the applicants. It's a lot of work, there's no question about that. Our rates are nowhere near what was quoted. We're $170 a night, minimum 2 nights. And typically, most weekends we've got people. Over the winter we haven't. So your question about the commercial versus, I guess you could take that further and say, well, if a tradie is working from home, is he a commercial entity? I think that's always a difficult one. And I think there is a general rating, like the general rate for overall good, got to be a factor.
I suppose, how does anything that you've said, and I don't question what you've said about the, how does any of that any different from the local motelier who probably has empty beds during the week, empty beds in the summer? There's no difference because you're both competing for exactly the same market. So
why should he be levied?
Yeah, why should he be levied and you not?
I'm saying I don't think he should be levied. Why is he being levied? You know, what's the difference?
Okay, so you would propose actually getting rid of the levy for them as opposed to
Absolutely.
as opposed to spreading the levy wider, therefore less for everybody.
I would.
Okay.
I mean, they're all benefits. Everyone's benefiting. And I mean, we're not benefiting from the cabs, the restaurants, the bars, the wineries. None of that at all. But they're still using the roads. Some people will be getting a better cut than others. It's the luck for them.
Councillor Olds.
Yeah, thanks, David. Thanks for coming along. I just linking into the conversation you've just had with Alistair. We've got properties in Great Yarra Martin Borough, for instance, by investors who purchase these properties solely for the purpose of providing accommodation. So to me, that's a commercial activity. We've got moteliers who not only pay commercial rates and can pay for their rubbish, they also pay a pan tax, which is for every toilet they have in the place. It's about $600 a year towards the cost of our wastewater network. Do you think it's fair and reasonable when these people make these investments, for instance, their contribution to those services that probably a higher in demand than the average household. Do you think that's fair and equitable across the district?
Well, I guess, if you link the PAN's situation into it, the bigger, like we've got one PAN, right? So that's no different to.
It doesn't mean anything to you. No.
Exactly.
No.
A motel might have 10 PANs.
That's correct.
Okay, there's a point of difference.
Yep.
I
Quite a
guess,
significant point.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, when is a house, not a house, when is a house a business? When is a house a motel? That's a question for you guys to sort out. But,
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I think a small motel or Airbnb are probably one of the same. A large motel is not a house, not a Airbnb.
That's why we're asking the question, I have to say, because we need some clarity around the definition as well. So it's important that we get that feedback. So
So on that,
What we'll do is the councillor last question.
Thanks, Dave, for coming. Agree with a lot of what you've said. Just to reiterate what Colin and Alistair's point, Alistair stated that Airbnbs are fighting for the same market as motels. Well, that's actually incorrect because motels also have all the truck drivers, the salesmen, workers that are in town for the week.
Excuse me, councillor, can you ask your question?
Yeah, or just do a statement just to make that there is a difference in an Airbnb and a motel. Point on that.
Okay, thanks very much, David.
thank you.
thanks, David.
So next up, Shane and Lynette McManaway. So welcome both of you. And your 10 minutes starts now.
Good morning.
136.
Yes,
Sorry, yeah.
submission 136 on page 583. Thank you. Right.
Good morning and thank you for the opportunity. You will be in receipt of our submission as outlined by the Mayor, which I would like to discuss with you this morning in regards to the capital value rating. As has been pointed out, my name is Shane McManaway and my wife Lynette. Here to my left, we pay $92,000 a year in rates to the South Wairarapa District Council. $92,000 a year we pay to the District Council. So we are a significant contributors, I would have thought, to this environment. Three areas I'd like to discuss: rural land, commercial land, and historic Greyhound Main Street in the precinct there. Firstly, the rural land. Farmland generally utilises little council services, no sewage, no water, no footpath, no rubbish. The only benefit they receive is roading, which offers other users the benefit throughout. State highways are subsidised by the Government Roading Authority to councils on unsealed roads. Grading these are scarce. And an example recently of Georges Road, just outside Martinborough, 50% of the road was graded. The other half of the road has not been graded, therefore unkept. Farm gate prices for stock is poor, and the cost of inputs to these farms has increased significantly. Very few farms, approximately 2% sheep and beef farms in the Wairarapa, will be making a profit this year and potentially into the 24-25 year. The rural economy is facing extreme headwinds. So a large bit of land with generally one or two houses on the property and no services, capital value takes into consideration the whole value of the property with few dwellings receiving any benefit. Moving to commercial land. My wife and I built the Five Rivers Medical Facility in Greyhound. This large building and ambulance station was built as we saw the need for these services in the Wairarapa region. The old buildings were in poor condition and the ambulance station was housed in a house with a carport. Latitude Health and Wellington Free Ambulance are both charity organisations. Both receive some government support, but with the rest, in the case of the Wellington Free Ambulance, is publicly raised funds whereby they seek to get $7 million a year. Both of these organisations require support to provide the sort of services that our town needs. We now have an excellent facility widely used by many residents in the South Wairarapa district. Historic Greyhound, the Main Street precinct. For a town like Greyhound, has many older historic buildings the upkeep on these buildings is expensive, and most of the small shops in Greydown would not be able to pay satisfactory rent to keep these buildings in the manner that they should be kept. Building owners are restricted on what can be done to them, and they still have the expenses to upkeep. Placing increased rent on this historic commercial premises to pay capital value rates will be difficult for owners to keep the tenants in these buildings, as the true costs would not be recovered. So in summary, a capital value rating system will stifle further economic growth of our region in the South Wairarapa district area and place further financial burden on these already challenged conditions. I would ask that our elected councillors for the South Wairarapa District Council focus on growth and prosperity for our region, which will come from visionary and forward thinking. Council needs to create incentives for people to invest both in the rural and urban sectors of our district. We need more carrot and less stick type rules and regulations. We have a real opportunity here to stand out as a standout region with a magnificent natural resource for which the Wairarapa South District Council manages. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, just before we invite questions, and we've got plenty of time, I'm just going to check Lynette. Is there anything you would like to add?
No, it's our
Okay,
choice.
excellent. Right, questions?
Yeah, thanks, Shane. Expand on, I didn't quite get what you were saying about capital value versus land value for rural properties, big farms.
As per the submission, Elsie, you'll see there is the divvying up of the percentage of the council facilities to be funded. Let me just find my piece. You propose that the capital value for 40% urban and 60% rural, which is the opposite of what the council say the community.
No, I'm asking specifically about the change from using land value to capital value when we do the different parts of rating. So at the moment, your farmland,
yes,
is we use land value to set the differentiation. Right? The proposal here is to change to capital value. So have you got a comment on how you would see that, how it affects rural?
A lot more increase in rates is what we'd see, and this is exactly
Oh, well,
what
that's-
at the Carlton
so-
District Council, that's
so-
exactly what they did.
so-
They promised that capital value rates would not be any further than land value rates at that time. In actual fact, that was incorrect. When the rates was actually set, more money was paid for those landholders for the new rating system of capital value than it was for the land value.
Okay, is that what
your question?
is that what you're saying? That
Yeah, is that concern?
that you think
That's
it is? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Can I just,
Well, no, I think councillor Maynard.
okay, yeah, go for it.
So just to clarify, because you're able to look at it from a commercial, rural and urban perspective, your belief is that moving from land value to capital value is not the way to go at this time. That's pretty much.
That's right.
Correct.
Thank you.
We see
We're
that.
opposed to it,
Yeah, we're opposed to it because we see that our rates will increase under that regime.
hugely.
That's our concern. And I might just add, I think if I can, we're all about paying for where we seek value. You know, we're investors, we're big investors in the South Wairarapa district, and I think we've proven that. And we want the place to go harder and faster and be a great place for everybody to live, and we want it to be a prosperous place. And I'd rather that we saw headlines in the paper about what's happening in the South Wairarapa District Council about things that are going really, really good, rather than things that are going really, really bad. And so, passionate about the region, we are absolutely passionate, but we don't see that this will help this region. In fact, it will drive people away. There will be a lack of investment. If we have a situation where capital value increases our rates beyond land value, the land value regime that exists currently. And I guess what we're seeking is some confidence that that won't happen.
Councillor Rolls.
I just want a little bit of clarity, Shane. You're saying that by going to either one of certainly the capital value, that it would that wouldn't incentivise business. I mean, councils aren't in the business of, I guess, other than providing services to their ratepayer base effectively, and some funding towards economic development. The private investor is the one that that creates the area as much as you've already identified with Five Rivers, for instance. So I'm just wondering, you're saying that capital value could disincentivize people coming. Could you perhaps broaden that a little bit for what? Why would that be? When we're probably one of the last councils in New Zealand to actually adopt capital value rating.
Well, I guess Lynette's pointed that out where we've seen that because we're ratepayers in the Carlton District Council.
I've seen that as an example.
We've seen an example where it hasn't been beneficial to its increased rates.
And I put a submission into the Carlton District Council for my father, and at the end of the day, when we went and submitted that, they promised that they would not increase rates. In capital value, you'd be paying no more than land value rates. It was just a swatch over on what they wanted to do. But in actual fact, that was incorrect. And the rating aid that actually does the rates in that council, yes, Lynette, you're right. Yes, the rates are more money. And yet they went out to the market saying there would be no more money paid in capital value rates than land value rates at the time when they swapped that over, and that was totally incorrect.
So that's our concern, I guess.
That's our concern. And for the Five Rivers thing, for example, you've got two charity organisations of both Latitude Health and the Wellington Free Ambulance who are a charity organisation there and are supported by us personally. And at the end of the day, you're going to slam them with a whole heap more capital rates. It's just, well, it just can't work. So, I mean, that's the issue.
Sorry, just to add on to that, I mean, obviously council's not looking at the rating. I mean, there's a big pie there, and how it's split and how it's shared out equitably is what we're looking at. And it's not a case of grabbing a whole heap of more money in through changing the rating model. It really is about how we rate it. So those less fortunate, for instance, may have a slight decrease or a stability in rating as against those that perhaps can afford a little more, are paying a little more. So,
but at the end of the day, you will not encourage people, as the gentleman said, to engage in keeping their properties updated. If you think, oh, well, they've got a bit more money to pay for rates, so we'll just charge them a bit more. I mean, that is not going to incentivise anybody in this region to want to be paying any more rates. They will not increase the value of their property, so they don't have to pay more rates.
Okay. Yep.
It's as simple as that.
Thanks.
Okay, look, thank you very much, Shane. Thank you, Lynette. No,
Thank you.
with the hear from you. The next person up is Elizabeth Freeby. Welcome, Elizabeth. And I'll just get in before somebody asks me. Elizabeth's submission is 126, and it's on page 546. So the next 10 minutes is all yours.
First of all, I think with all of these suggestions, some examples of calculation would have been, I don't know exactly what you're thinking of charging and how you're calculating that, but that's given. Well, the small thing on the infrastructure fund, so long as a portion of that is targeted for roading, I think, just so that roading is actually kept up and it doesn't get sucked out for some kind of climate change emergency, like the council suggested, if like the town sewage died. And it just would be terrible if all of that is sucked up, something like that, so long as some portion is still kept for roading. I think that's rural. But Mary, my main issue is the MBs, and I did look at a number of other councils around the country to see how they're dealing with it. And the major thing was there's been no suggestion at this stage of how you're going to differentiate between the B&Bs. And there's a big difference between residential hosted accommodation and unhosted accommodation. Unhosted accommodation is more along the commercial lines, whereas hosted accommodation is where somebody's living on the property and they're just renting out the granny flat, in my case, or some extra rooms on the house. Basically, because rural, we're paying for all the infrastructure, we've got the water, we're paying for the water, we're paying for the rubbish removal, we're paying for everything. And we get less accommodation, we get less guests. So like in Christchurch, a rural hosted accommodation, there they actually are, no consent is required there, they do consent there. And it's a maximum of up to 8 guests. And rural unhosted, they've got a maximum number of nights for the year before they need to have a resource consent. Whereas in urban, they are using a lot more of the infrastructure. So I understand that have a big impact. But yeah, one of the main reasons is that I thought of B&B, everyone kept saying there's not enough accommodation here. I wanted to support the tourist industry, help pay my rates. So it's really, that's a different model as to somebody that's gone into a commercial way and have 2 or 3 properties that they're renting out and not living on site. That's just my 5 cents worth. So really, I think at this stage, it would be really better for the council just to actually have a registration fee. So that you can actually get a good handle of numbers, and you could ask what that registration is to what type of accommodation it is, and then you'd be able to calculate how much money you'd actually be able to make targeting these, members, that's all. So yeah, it's a cheaper prospect too, and a first interim step, possibly. That's my 5 cents.
Okay, well, that's plenty of time. Councillor Old's got his hand here first, so you go.
Thanks very much for that. So what you're suggesting is that we look at rural a little differently in terms of Airbnbs or B&Bs.
Yeah.
We do for the urban environment. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, there's 4 different types really. There's urban and rural.
Yeah.
There's also hosted and unhosted.
That's the 2 I differentiate. Yeah.
You can grab accommodation out in the country too, and just rent it out and sit on it.
So just note that hosted and hosted.
Hosted and unhosted.
Unhosted.
Different, yeah, and rural and different impacts as well.
Yep.
And like I say, the Christchurch City Council had a beautiful explanation of that. Theirs has recently gone through the Environment Court, it's quite detailed. They actually have a separate, which might be interesting for Greytown, a separate category for heritage buildings as well that are used for the members.
Excellent.
I didn't go into the detail of that.
No, that's fine.
Relative to me,
Well done. You got to the.
the council just.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Okay, well, yes, there are.
One from that, yeah, I'm really enjoyed reading it, and I like the definitions you've got here. I presume those are the Christchurch ones, are they?
Yes, I hope that was clear.
Yeah, no, very clear. My question would be, would you be supportive of, and you've heard my other questions about the balance between the providers. Would you be in favour of looking at urban unhosted accommodation being looked at as a commercial activity, like a hotel or a motel?
Actually, I think they actually do act like a hotel. They're just their accommodations are separate places rather than all on one same lot. Actually, so I do actually think they are slightly more.
And then following on from that, on the rural side, would you see that the increase in potential, or the increase that's occurred over many years now, is farmers, because of the cost pressures going on to the rural, looking at ways about how they can diversify their farming operation as opposed to going into accommodation as such, using the assets that are on the farm to the best benefit of the whole farming operation?
Yeah, well,
the Jeremy Clarkson.
Okay, that kind of thing. Yes, I've heard about his. I think it really, again, it depends on are they on the land farming, and is it, are they there? There are issues when you've got unhosted accommodation as to who does a neighbour call when there's noises and problems, that kind of thing. So I think there's still going to be an hosted or unhosted situation, and they, it might be the house in the next paddock, but at least they're hosting it. They're approachable, So
the hosted, unhosted definition makes for very interesting consideration.
Yeah, it is. When you start to think about it, it's quite a different model.
Yeah, it is.
And it does speak to council's concern around the fact that there are so many unhosted homes, particularly here in Martinborough, that that eat away at their long-term accommodation.
That's right.
For residents and staff.
That's right, and people do have to move out of town generally, and often out of the region to be able to buy property, because a lot of property is sat on for investment, and that is commercial, really, isn't it?
I like that.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks very much. Really appreciate it.
So, our next submitter is Angela Brown.
It is.
Welcome, Angela. And, Angela's submission is 192, and it's on page 712. So the next 10 minutes are all yours.
thank you, I don't think I'll need 10 minutes. So yeah, thanks everyone for this chance to have us say a few words today. So I will be reading because I'm not used to public speaking. Whilst I appreciate there's been a huge amount of work involved to present the rate and review document to the community, how this and other consultation documents are presented have major failings. Local Government Act Section 82, Principles of Consultation, which I know you'll be aware of, says that persons who will or may be affected by, who have an interest in.
Excuse me, Storm, if you will get your opportunity in 10 minutes.
Yes, I realise that. I'm just sitting beside Angela.
Okay.
So, so decision on matter should be provided by the local authority with reasonable access to relevant information. And this is the sentence that's important, in a manner and format that is appropriate to the preferences and needs of those persons. Having read through the returned documents, there is a theme of lack of relevant information provided to make informed decisions. Examples, general public need to have more information about how this would affect them. I currently disagree due to lack of understanding. Very vague proposals, responses made with little knowledge of how it could work. So there's lots of people commenting on a sort of similar thing, that they don't feel what they were given was helping them make a decision. And I found that also myself on some of the matters. So what steps can be taken to ensure we involve all those who want to be heard and to make information easy to understand? And I know it's difficult because we are trying to reach out to so many different people, and we do have music comms and all the rest of it. But yeah, so let's think ideal world and not worry about money. So we've currently presented with written documents, which they link to policies with lots of details. So a lot of writing, a lot of very small writing. This does not work for everyone. More visual presentations, access to sitting the workshops, short videos, posters around town, just snippets of information that sometimes helps build a picture. Public forums, create spaces for those who want to ask questions, but also for those who want to listen. We might not even consider a topic until someone else raises it, so in a shared room, we probably get a little bit more of an idea from someone else's perspective. It's an opportunity to hear how other sectors will be affected too. So when we're first given a document like this, human nature's got, right, where do I fall in, which one's me, and what's it going to cost me? But if we can understand from the people that are part of our community how it affects them, we might go, oh, well, we will pay more, but we're prepared to do it because it helps you. Just a little bit more around that, so bringing everyone in. And when we say public forums, we don't necessarily mean you guys all have to sit there and we all go, right, in front of you. It's more an opportunity to chat informally about some of those topics too. So, yeah, examples I found from reading submissions of things that, after I read through them all, things that I thought, oh, I didn't know that, or I didn't realise that. So the first item was about the rate remission on sports grounds. Change to 100% from 50%. And you think, oh, well, yeah, great, let's support all our sports and great to get people outdoors. But then someone commented that the council are then proposing the rate for community centres, societies and association will increase to 100% from 50%. Now, I'm not sure if that's true or if it's not true, but that would actually have would make me try and make a decision of how I balance that. Do I think sports more important or other community facilities where people may connect in a different way? So Parish Estate presented really good information about how it affects the wine industry, which, very, very important to us. Farmers' submissions gave a different perspective to our urban community. Greytown Orchards retirement village would be hugely impacted as it's, demonstrates, which on my first reading of everything, I didn't pick some of these things up. I was focused on who am I, where do I sit? So one submitter asked, please make available the communication strategy for the proposed financial policies to engage with ratepayers. What common channels were used to consult and seek public feedback for the consultation period other than some Facebook posts? Now, I'm not on Facebook, I don't do social media. So I do miss out on a lot of information out there. And I've, for the first time, thought, should I do it? Because I've been, involved with things a little bit more. But I deliberately don't, because I need to see what would happen to that person who is not on social media. So I do get feeds through council emails, which are really effective, which I opted to. But there are people we miss when we do respond in certain ways. So the current format is not meeting the needs or preferences of all members of our community. The documents could be presented in a more engaging format. Visual presentations could be an option online and in person, little snippet of videos you could watch or something similar. Public forums, sharing information more effectively could reduce the amount of time spent by council officers answering individual questions. So once I've had someone else's answer, I don't need to, and I know it's in writing, I know I can usually find it, but not always. So I ask, consultation process is reviewed with some urgency. Thank you.
That's all right. Angela, yeah, thanks very much, because I just, what I'm hearing from you, for instance, is a degree of dissatisfaction about the way that we've consulted our community in terms. I haven't really heard you speak a lot about what we consulted on.
Yeah.
Which is the object of the exercise here, not a whipping session about how badly we've consulted, but we really want to hear what you think, either as an individual or as Martin Borough Community Board, on the things that we've consulted on, and I haven't captured that.
Yeah, I think that what happened was I set to and did my little submission, so I did go.
Yeah.
And what I kept coming back to was, I can't really answer this because I don't have enough understanding of it. I don't understand this piece, and it's easy then to go, I don't want to do this because I'm going to make myself look stupid. And so what was coming out of this was more of a frustration from my perspective of if I was feeling like this, I'm sure other people were feeling like this.
Sure.
And then we don't respond because when we feel uncertain about what those decisions are, and we feel like you've put a lot of work into this, so you understand this, and you're asking me to comment on pretty big things, and even as being a member of the community, I still don't understand some of these issues. So so what I was trying to do is make it so that no one feels like that. No one feels like, I won't do it because it's a bit hard or I don't understand. So, and it came back then to the consultation process. So that's, so I did sort of have opinions like on the Airbnbs, for example, but it was, how much difference would that really make? Is this like this amount? Would the cost of bringing it in cost more? And I'd read Queenstown policy and I'd Christchurch it and other people, what they were doing. And it became like a distraction from, because I didn't know in the scheme of the pie, what we were trying to change was this just the edge of the crust, and was it not really worth that much?
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah. Thanks for that. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, I really do.
Really good explanation of
Yeah.
Councillor Maynard.
Thanks. Hi, Andrew. I'm just wondering if we could just get clarification for you from Charlie. With regards to what you were asking about the split when it came to sports versus social recreation.
No, we're not going to the
Sorry, because I don't believe that that's the case.
Yeah, no, it was what someone had submitted, and when I read it, I thought, well, I hadn't seen that before. And again, it was that lack of I would feel more comfortable in a situation where it might be community-led, it might be community boards, it might be council, but different forums where then you've got those questions and someone raised that and you go, I'm not even sure if that's true. Let's go and check. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Cool.
Thanks, Angela.
Okay, thank you very, very much.
Thanks. And thanks for being so attentive.
So that brings us to our next submitter, who is already at the table. Welcome, Storm, and next 10 minutes is yours.
Do you understand this is the submission by me, not the committee?
Yes, I understand that.
Thanks, Storm.
Good.
Number is that?
798.
798.
217 is the submission number on page 798.
So please let me clarify. It's not meant to be a criticism, but it's trying to get my understanding submission process itself and some of the things. What I found, and this may be me, what I found was difficult to get enough information to make sound judgments in a submission. I highlighted 3 issues where I think this is where I didn't understand. I'm just asking you to perhaps, maybe I've missed something, I appreciate that, or maybe there's something we could also do. But in the first instance, borrowing versus current funds, now the current climate, everybody is struggling for funding. And I know we have a process for borrowing, but I think for intergenerational purposes, should we be looking at borrowing as a way of going forward? We're struggling for money. We're not going to dig it out of what's there, so we need to look at other avenues. I'm just wondering why we consider the borrowing. I understand the regulations that can control that to a bit, but I just wonder any sort of time not think outside the square. That was my first question. The second one I had was the infrastructural problems. We've got 2 major infrastructural systems, which is roading and water. Both of them appear to be in crisis, and yet we don't seem to be looking at it as it is across the board and how to get out of it. Again, I bow to your knowledge on the background of what is done, but I don't think we're attacking these problems in the best way we could do. And this may relate to number 1, that should we be doing other things to get ourselves out of some of these crises. And the third one I talk about is the decision by council not to take development contributions. That seems to me a baffling decision. If you look at the first 2, we've got funding issues. Why aren't we getting developers to participate a bit more? And I know in major constructions for regions and that they are starting to look now at getting developers to put their full force into the whole thing. So I'm just, another 3 questions I've got. Now, if I've misread the papers, then that's my fault. But the other questions I have, and I don't know that I had clarity trying to look through the documents. And again, I agree that the documents are very ready, very deep, very long, and sometimes that can cause fuzziness. But I just don't see the clarity in those decision-making processes that tells me we've looked at every angle and come up with a decision. That's my questions.
Well, I'm very happy to sit down with you over lunch and go through each point you've got there. Very happy to do that with you.
Yeah. So you feel that you've done everything you could do in those processes?
Lunch.
I think it's probably worth just acknowledging that unfortunately in this forum, by its very nature, we can't sit and go through each of your questions and provide an answer, which is unfortunate. However, that said, you have raised 3 very good questions, which will form part of our deliberation and information seeking at that time. I know that seems
No, look, I especially.
just to say it out loud that we're not simply ignoring you.
And I didn't expect it. To be honest. What I expected was to say, you've missed something. Maybe I've got to get some answers here, or maybe we haven't looked and we want to look. That's all I'm looking for, something to say we're going to do something more than what we're doing, because we're in a bit of a crisis at the moment. We're not the only ones, and we've got to think of ways to get out of it, and it's not easy.
I completely appreciate that. I just thought it was worth acknowledging the process.
Yeah,
I understand.
thanks, Dawn. Much appreciated, yeah.
I've got another question.
Well, let's just do a double check. There may be. No, apparently not, but thank you.
Not. Look, I'm here to answer questions.
No. Yeah, absolutely. The next group is probably you again.
You again.
No, it's not me, no. Karen's doing the presentation on Pilot Community Board.
Right, okay.
Karen's backup, that's what I'm saying.
I was going to say, if you'd like to support her though.
Well, welcome, Karen. Yeah.
207.
207 on page 774.
774, Jesus.
And the next 10 minutes are all.
We just have 2 seconds to.
Let's just
Yeah.
wait.
Yep.
2 seconds, 2 seconds.
We've got to scroll through nearly 1,600 pages.
It's submission number
Have your submission and
207 and page 774. We're all good to go.
Yeah, I'm happy now.
Right, thank you very much.
No, that's why I got a hard copy. Okay.
So first of all, I just want to make three fairly general comments, since I've been given forum today. We find ourselves at a little bit of a disadvantage, as we, I think, said before, but specifically on this consultation, the Martinborough Community Board members, or all Community Board members, were excluded from workshops, and I don't understand this. We don't understand this. The chair was included. Understand why 9 other people, 9 other elected members who have a big commitment to this community should have been excluded from that process. My other point is that we are at the moment not sort of broadening this topic from the allocation of rates and the pie concept. We're very concerned at the moment on the management of the expenditure of this pie. There seems to be a lack of proper process in care, exercising expenditure of this money, especially in the area of capital works. I obviously personally have a professional interest and expertise in the area, but it's very concerning. It's all very well raising all this money, but if there's no proper process followed in the expenditure of it, it is very concerning. And my third point, in terms of rating incomes, specifically relating to Martinborough, we are now very constrained with our ability to grow the size of this pie because of the lack of capacity in the wastewater system. So that means we're going to have no new businesses to pay rates in this town at the moment, no new housing. So we're very constrained there. The other impact, obviously, of this whole constraint in the housing sector is it's impacting on the ability of the residents who work in that sector, the builders, the building suppliers, our Mitre 10 here. There's this huge constraint on their income, their ability to earn income to be able to pay rates. So those are a couple of points that relate directly to our Martinborough community. So we have this discussion as it's been presented, and we looked at the consultation document really specifically, not because we weren't involved in the bigger workshops. So we didn't really have, obviously Storm was there for some of them. We could have had more sessions, but that's layer upon layer. So we looked at consultation document as supplied as a community board. Now this whole process, obviously, of applying the ratings to the community is a very nuanced and complicated process to decide the weighting of the proportional contributions of different types of property owners. So we looked at, obviously, from the principle of equity, looking at all, trying to apply a principle of fairness or equity to that document as it was supplied to us. And on the basis of that, as of this written submission said, we generally agreed that we felt that the capital value was a fairer system than the land value. So that, however, obviously those that are asset rich and income poor would be disproportionately affected by that system. But on balance, we did tend to feel that sounded fairer. Although listening to some of the submissions today, that's obviously, there's obviously some sort of unintended consequences from that, that we've heard today from some of our submissions from Shane and Nick and Awe, which I heard before. So they feel as though that is actually quite destructive, perhaps one of the better word, from their point of view in certain aspects. So it seems to be that, so even our feeling that would be a fairer system, that's obviously complicated. Also, I'm very concerned about Palliser, the vineyards submission, saying that will very adversely affect their ability to do business in this town. I'm already a bit concerned about the corporatisation of our wineries, with some of the original owners selling up and big overseas buyers, we won't name any names, buying those up, because the very character of our wine region is its boutiqueness. That's the uniqueness of Martinborough wine. That's what our whole prosperity of this town is based on. We're not a big supplier, but we're part of an industry with very interesting growers, and that's what people love. We come here, and that's if that is going to be compromised by this change to capital value from land value, then I'm very concerned about that. So although we felt that that was fair, that's obviously, it could, you know, it's a bit more complicated than that. So we're concerned about funding. There's a little bit of inconsistency there about made on section 3.5 or clause 3.5. We just wondered why you would use capital value for roads to fund versus a flat rate to fund water infrastructure. Why not use capital value for both? That was one comment that we made. And had the council considered other options for funding water, for example, increased water meter charges? And we have a nominal charge at the moment, but why not increase or use a further user pays principle there? A development levy to fund infrastructure that was talked about before. Definitely looking at development levies for people who want to develop property and things like that in the town, get that development levy back. I think it's been hasn't been applied very rigorously in the past. And perhaps there's some money in the kitty, community wellbeing fund. Perhaps spend that on infrastructure to slightly reduce the borrowing required. I'm not sure exactly how much that is. Then we had a comment on this area of culturally significant to Maori, obviously culturally significant land. Apparently that whole process of rates remission for that type of land is covered in the district plan. So there's a process in the district plan that covers that. It seemed like a double up. I don't know why that was highlighted, because that, my understanding is it's covered in the district plan.
That identifies the land, not the rating.
That system whereby it can be given to trusts and various entities, and that would mean that there's the QE2 thing that then you apply to the council for your rates to be limited. It seems to be a double up.
I'll explain.
Because it
Else,
Okay, well, look, thanks very much.
Sorry,
Yes.
can I just, so your submission is on behalf of the entire Martin Borough Community Board, is that correct? Yeah. So, and the Community Board have supported this submission, obviously, what you presented to us today, in this manner. That's all I wanted to do, was just make sure I got some clarity. Because a lot of what you're saying, for instance, I would imagine, given the role of Martin Borough Community Board, would have, a lot of the stuff about the way we consult, etc., would have been transmitted to Martin Borough Community Board, seeking your assistance during the consultation process as well. Would that be a fair assumption?
Seeking our assistance.
Yeah, and obviously listening to the community and feeding that there's back into this forum, for instance. Yeah. So
I mean, I see that there's been a good response from the community.
sorry, there's been
I think there's been quite a number of submissions that indicate the level of interest.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
We are concerned how complex this topic is.
Okay.
And how rigorous and robust the response, dare I say it, even from you people collectively will be, because given the unexpected consequences that some of which I discovered today, and also from this Palliser submission, I mean.
Well, that's one of the reasons I questioned, because you had seemed to bring the view of the community board here, and that you had made your own assessment on one of the submitters, for instance, and sort of changed your thinking. So my thinking was that it was your submission rather than the community board's.
Joel, thinking. Do you like that word?
No, I appreciate that.
Talking,
Yep, that's the reason I asked the question.
United voice.
Yep, that's absolutely fine.
No, we're thinking on our feet, perhaps.
Thank you.
Just the shared view of the community board.
Yep.
But in the process of consultation, I was invited, but they weren't. What was done was perhaps five of us might have had a different input.
Okay.
Just one.
Yeah.
Complex topic.
Mm.
And then if you multiply that across the three community boards, you increase the input. I know it's not always the best thing to do. More, we always just create more. But maybe things
Might never get there.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, that's really obviously a decision that we're helped with by our officers and our advisors at the time. So, yeah. But anyhow, I appreciate that.
We're in touch with the community,
Yep, absolutely. Well, we think we are too as councillors, and we should be. Yeah, that's our role.
So why would 9 exclude it?
Correct. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, I'll look
Look at that, the timing's perfect. Yeah. Must be lunch,
Okay, thank you very much.
lunchtime.
And indeed, on my agenda, it is lunch.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is too, yeah.
Our next guest is at 12:45, so we'll resume.
Yeah, absolutely. People here that are later, early lunch.
Well, for example, Dan wants to go after something.
Okay,
Was a bit big,
she spoke, didn't she?
but we've seen that.
I will give it lunch break, I need the time. Yeah, I'm happy.
Oh.
I was just making sure she wasn't in the room either.
I think we'll just have lunch first. Yeah, I think so, I'll need lunch first.